Now we will discuss different types of joint which is found in our body. We can classify joint on different bases. First, we are going to discuss about the structural classification of bone. Structure means how joint form. What is the basis of joint? On behalf of that, joint is design form. First is fibrous joint, second is cartilaginous joint, and third is synovial joint. First, now we will discuss one by one. Fibrous joint. Collagen fiber span the space between bones can be three types: suture, gymphosis, and syndesmosis. It means the two bones are articulating or joining with the help of some fibers. That is known as fibrous joint or suture. We will discuss first fibrous joint. Example is suture. You can see here, a very fine stitching can be seen here. When you see the skull, there is very fine stitching, like stitching. It means they are suture. Immobile fibrous joint, you cannot move this joint. If you want to move this, joint are always mobile. If you see this joint, this femur moves in the cavity. But when you see here, fibrous joint, these two bones, this other bone, different bone. Okay, both bones are attached with a fiber, but it is immovable. Second is behind skull bone together. Behind skull bone together. Skull bone, there are different skull bone, and because of this suture, bones, skull looks like one. Skull is whole look like one because of suturing. Overlapping beveled edges. There is overlapping. If you see the suture, one suture is going over other suture. This is the overlapping of suture. Plain, straight, non-overlapping edge. Palatine process of maxillae. Palatine, if we have maxilla, we will show. Next. Types of suture. Suture are the stitching of bone. Suture is like a stitching of bone, and we have different example in skull, in maxillae, all the facial bone. They are the best example of suture. Fibrous joint. Second type of fibrous joint is gymphosis, attachment of a tooth to its socket. Tooth is not a true bone, but it is like dentine and cement. And we have very stronger tooth. Whatever we are chewing, whatever we are trying to crack from our teeth, our tooth is always stable. It means until unless it is not stable, it cannot crack anything. So there is a cavity over where tooth is attached. The tooth is attached of tooth is its socket. There is socket where tooth is inserted very strongly, held in a place by fibrous periodontal ligament. If you can see here in the diagram, tooth, whatever we are seeing, it is very smaller portion. Maximum amount of dentine is inserted within the socket. If you extract your teeth, someone may have extraction of teeth, you can see more amount of dentine is inside the gum and less amount is visible over upside. That's why more root, more depth inside the socket, there is stability. Some movement while chewing. When you are chewing, sometimes when you lose your teeth during your children's days, there is some mobility. Same as when you are going for chewing, there is some amount, very little amount of, less noticeable amount of movement is available over the dentine. Next is syndesmosis. Syndesmosis is also a third example of fibrous joint, and this is a joint where you can see it is pelvis bone. Sorry, it is pelvis bone. It has two pelvis, and both pelvises are attached with a joint, with a fibrous joint known as syndesmosis, and it is a very important joint in females. What happened during delivery? We don't have the other counterpart, but both are attached like this and fixed. Okay, it is one. Act as a one. Whole pelvis act as a one when you are walking, moving, running, etc. But at the time of delivery, when female deliver child, before delivery of 1 month, there are some hormone releases in her body, that is relaxing hormone, which can dissolve that joint. It means this is not a permanent joint. that syndesmosis is a joint, fibrous joint, which can connect two types of pelvis bone together, but in females at the time of delivery that joint is dissolved, separate the bone, baby comes out, and after the 1 and 2 months it again reunite. The two bone bound by ligament only. Interosseous membrane is like just strong membrane, most movable of fibrous joint. Among all three joints, this joint is most. There is some amount of mobility when person walk like this. So there is some amount of flexibility available in this joint. Normally, I have told you fibrous joint doesn't have mobility, but syndesmosis type of fibrous joint has some amount of mobility. Interosseous membrane unite radius to ulna and tibia to fibula. Radius to ulna. This is your radius and this is your ulna. Both are the bones of forearm. And both are working together. When you flex your arm, it always bring both bones together. It means there is some connection between radius and ulna. Same as tibia and fibula. Bone of lower limb. Both are attached by some fibers, membrane, known as interosseous membrane. It forms what is joined? Connection of two bones by means of anything. Radius ulna, tibia fibula, as well as your pubis symphysis are connected with some fibrous membrane known as syndesmosis. Next. Joint. Now come to cartilaginous joint. We have discussed there are three types of joint: fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial. We had discussed about fibrous joint. Now we are going to discuss about the cartilaginous joint. Lack of synovial cavity. Allow little or no movement. Joint is tightly connected by either cartilage. Two types of cartilaginous joints: synchondrosis and symphysis. Bones are joined by hyaline cartilage. Example, rib attachment to sternum. As you can see, all the ribs are originating from the vertebral column and attached to your sternum. And there is some amount of mobility, because if you don't have mobility, you cannot inhale or exhale. When we are going for respiration, rib is coming out and in. It is only possible because of a cartilaginous joint. If the joint is purely synovial or bone-to-bone joint, it will never move. But because of presence of cartilage, and we all know cartilage is slightly flexible structure, it can allow some amount of mobility. So very minimal. You can measure the chest expansion in athlete. There should be at least 5 centimeter expansion. When you go for any army training, anywhere, they measure the expansion of chest. The expansion of chest is because of mobility over between the sternum as well as your ribs. Epiphyseal plate in children bind epiphysis and diaphysis. I have told you yesterday, when child born, his epiphysis, diaphysis are separated, and with the course of time, they both united. But it doesn't mean that both bones are separated. They have some attachment. But not by the means of real bone. It is by means of some amount of fibrous cartilaginous joint, and cartilage makes some attachment with the epiphysis and metaphysis. Cartilaginous joint, symphysis. I have told you cartilaginous joint two types: symphysis and syndesmosis. Symphysis, slightly movable joint, end of the articulating bone are covered with hyaline cartilage, but a disc of fibrocartilage connect the bone. Slightly movable joint, end of the articulating bones are covered with hyaline cartilage. So pubic symphysis is a joint which contains both fiber as well as cartilage both. Clear? But a disc of fibrocartilage connect the bone. I have shown you this both bones are connected by the fibrous membrane as well as cartilage. Now come to the real joint, synovial joint, and this is the most important joint for a physical trainer. We all use this joint for different athletic activities. Joint in which two bones are separated by a space called a joint grotti. In previous joint we have seen there is no inter-joint space between two bones. Both bones are closely attached either by means of fibers or by means of cartilage. There is some mobility or no mobility. But synovial joint is a joint where you have all the mobility, proper gap between the joint, etc., etc. Most are freely movable. Synovial joint. Diarthrosis, freely movable. Diarthrosis means two bones are making joint and they are freely movable. So this is the example of synovial joint. There is one cavity, one concavity, proper attachment. You can see there is full movement in this plane, full movement in this plane, and full movement in rotation. It means it has all movement. It has movement in all axis and plane. You can see here it is moving in frontal axis, sagittal as well as transverse. Synovial joint. A joint is made up of number of structures. Synovial joint is made up of all the periarticular structures which form a joint. It requires two bones which articulate. It requires ligaments, tendon, fascia, bursa, joint capsule. All makes a stable joint, and it is the most stable joint. Even with the highest amount of mobility, this joint has enough amount of stability. Shoulder joint. You can see here we are showing a picture of shoulder joint which has a cavity as well as humerus, and whole cavity is augmented by some amount of joint capsule. Synovial joints, there are different types of synovial joint: planar, hinge, pivot, condyloid, saddle joint, and ball and socket joint. So synovial joint are different types. Planar joint we will discuss one by one in detail. Joint types. First is planar joint. Planar joint primarily permit back and forth and side to side movement. Example, intercarpal joint. Intercarpal. This is your carpal bone. Over wrist we have around 8. We have 8 carpal bones, and there is some amount of mobility. They are planar joint. Plane means they all are flat bone. All carpal bones are flat, smaller bone, and we, as you remember, carpal bone are mainly for the stability. Some amount of mobility is available over there. Next is hinge joint. Produce an opening and closing motion like that of a hinge door, permit only flexion and extension. For example, elbow and knee. Hinge joint, opening and closing. It has only 1 degree of freedom. You all aware about the degree of freedom. Degree of freedom means the number of independent coordinates present in any movement. So all hinge joint has only 1 degree of freedom. It means the movement is permissible only in one plane and axis. You can see here, this is the example of carpal bone. All carpal bones are here. Attached, some amount of mobility available. Second example is elbow joint. You can see only 1 degree of range of motion is available, that is flexion and extension. Next is pivot joint. Surface of one bone articulate with a ring formed partly by other bone. Joint that enable the palm to turn anteriorly and posteriorly. Pivot joint. Your all interphalangeal joint. They are the example of pivot joint. Surface of one bone articulates a ring formed partly by the other bone. It means like synovial joint, there is complete approximation. There is a complete approximation. One bone articulates with the other bone. But in pivot joint, one bone partly articulate with the other bone. Joint that enable the palm to turn anteriorly and posteriorly. Next is condyloid joint. The position of one bone fits into the oval shaped depression of other bone. Example, wrist. Wrist joint, same example is wrist joint. If you can see here, radius and ulna. End of radius and ulna are articulated with the carpal bone. Head of radius and notch. Here, pivot joint between head of radius and radial notch of ulna. This is radius and this is ulna. It articulates here. This is the example of pivot joint. Okay. At elbow, it articulate with humerus. At elbow, it articulate with humerus. This is the example of elbow joint. That is hinge joint. But there is other joint. Some portion of ulna articulate with the some portion of head of radius, and this is the example of pivot joint. Pivot between radius and ulna, and this joint is responsible for supination and pronation movement. Next is condyloid joint between radius and scaphoid. Radius and scaphoid. This is the radius. This is the radius. Distal end of radius. It attached with the one of carpal, first carpal bone, that is scaphoid. How can you remember carpal bone? There are 8 bones. How can you remember the name of? There is one formula known as, you can remember, she looks too pretty, try to catch her. One misnomer, she looks too pretty, try to catch her. S for scaphoid, L for lunate, T for tricotyl, P for pisiform. 4 bones of one row. Next is try to catch her. Next row again start from the lateral side. Trapezium, trapezoid, capitate and hamate. So by this formula you can remember all 8 bones of your wrist as well as also known as carpal bone. So condyloid joint form between the styloid process of radius and first carpal bone. It articulate over the wrist. First carpal bone is scaphoid bone, and this joint form the condyloid joint. Now come to saddle joint. Articular surface of one bone is saddle shaped, and the articular surface of other bone fits into the saddle. First MCP joint. First MCP joint. You have flexion, extension, adduction, abduction and circumduction. So because one saddle and phalanges fits there, and it have full. This is example of saddle joint. Thumb example is first MCP joint. You can say thumb or first metacarpophalangeal joint. Now the most important is and most stronger joint with lot of degree of freedom is ball and socket joint. Ball like surface of one bone fitting into a cup-like depression of another bone. Example, shoulder and hip joint. Ball-like socket, ball-like surface fits into cup-like socket. The next classification, functional classification of, we have discussed structural classification. Now we are going to discuss about the functional classification of joint. Synarthrosis, amphiarthrosis and diarthrosis. Synarthrosis means immobile joint. Amphiarthrosis means slightly mobile joint, and diarthrosis means freely mobile joint. Sutures, they are totally immobile joint. So it will come under suture is example of synarthrosis. Second is example is epiphyseal plate. I have told you when child born, all component of bones are separated, but not fully separated. When you have X-ray, they will appear as separated because they are attached with some amount of fibers, not by the true bone. That's why they look like separate. Like epiphyseal plate, symphysis pubis, you can see here. Whole joint is attached here. Pubic symphysis connected by cartilage. It has some limited amount of mobility. So it is an example of amphiarthrosis. So pubic symphysis has a limited amount of mobility. So it is an example of amphiarthrosis. So those joints which doesn't have mobility are the example of synarthrosis. Those joints which has limited amount of mobility is the example of amphiarthrosis, and freely mobile joints are known as arthrosis, freely mobile, diarthrosis. It is the example of diarthrosis. Now come to regional classification. Skull type is immobile, vertebral type slightly movable, limb type freely movable. classification according to number of articulating bones. Simple joint, 2 bones articulate. Example, interphalangeal joint. Compound joint, 3 or more articulating surface. Example, radiocarpal joint. Any joint which is formed by more than 2 bones are example of compound joint. Complex joint, 2 or more articulating surface and an articulating disc or meniscus, like your knee joint, patellofemoral joint as well as tibiofemoral joint. So 3 bones are uniting and making a one joint. Now I am going to discuss another very important physical mechanics, Newton's law of motion, most commonly used in most of the sports activity for training as well as performance. We will discuss Newton's law of motion. If Newton has said, if I have ever made any valuable discoveries, it has been owing more to patient attention than any other talent. Physicists are claiming that Newton is from our side. He has made everything for us. But what Newton says, whatever I have invented, it is mainly for the human healthcare or for the benefit of human, for the treatment of human being. It is not for the designing some physical tools which can be used for luxury purpose. Newton's law of motion. First law, an object in motion tend to stay in motion and an object at rest tend to stay at rest unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. This is also known as law of inertia, कि any object which is at rest until unless you will not apply any force over there, it will not move. Second law says force equal mass time acceleration. When you apply any force, its acceleration will be dependent on its mass. And third is, for every action there is equal and opposite reaction. Now we will discuss one by one law in detail with its application. First, an object at rest tend to stay at rest. An object in motion tend to stay in motion unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. Newton says that any object is stationary, will be always stationary until unless you will apply any disturbing force which is more than that object mass moment of inertia. Every object has a mass moment of inertia, or you can say center of gravity or its mass weight. So until unless you will not apply any force which is more than that mass moment of inertia, it will not move. Same as if any object is moving in vacuum, it will always constantly moving because there is no force to stop that. What does this mean? Well, basically an object will keep doing what it was doing unless acted on by an unbalanced force. Whatever, either stationary or moving, will maintain that position unless until you will not apply any unbalanced mean, which should be more than that, which should be capable to disturb the equilibrium. Equilibrium means stability. Suppose if an object is stationary with some amount of force and you are applying same amount of force by which it is stationary, it will not move. You must apply any force which is slightly greater than that object force. If the object was sitting still, it will remain stationary. If it was moving constant, keep moving. It takes force to change the motion of an object. What is meant by unbalanced force? We are number of time I am saying until unless you will not apply any unbalanced force, it will not change the original state of that object. I am trying to explain this with some example. A soccer ball is sitting at rest. It takes an unbalanced force of a kick to change its motion. Second example, suppose if 2 persons are pulling ropes with equal forces, it will always be stationary until unless any unbalanced force is applied from one side. Newton's first law of motion, also called the law of inertia. Inertia means capability of any object to resist its change in original position. What is inertia? Inertia means capability of any object to resist change in its initial position. The first law states that all objects have inertia. The more mass of object, the more inertia it has, and the harder it is to change its motion. Okay, mass will be more, inertia will be more. So if you want to change the original position of that object, you have to apply more amount of force according to its inertia. More example from real life. A powerful locomotive begins to pull a long line of boxcar that were sitting at rest. Since the boxcar are so massive, they have a great deal of inertia, and it takes large force to change their motion. Once they are moving, it takes large force to suppose. If you are trying to push this podium, you can easily, because your force may be more than the force of inertia of this podium. But if you are trying to move this whole room, you cannot, because your force is much more lesser than the inertia of this building. But if an earthquake came, that earthquake can move this building, because the force applied by that earthquake is much more higher than the law of inertia of this building. Another example, on your way to school, a bug flies into your windshield. Since the bug is so small, it has very little inertia and exerts a small force on your car. So small you cannot even feel. Even if someone is pushing you, pressing you with a very minimal pressure, it cannot disturb your initial position, because your inertia is much more higher. Similar, if you have more inertia and any force which is very least is applied over you, it may not have any least effect on you. But if your any force which is much more than your inertia can displace you, can change your position according to force applied, according to balance between inertia and your force. If your inertia is very less and force is very high, so it can displace you so long. But if your force is so high and inertia is high and force is less, it will not have any effect. If objects in motion tend to stay in motion, why don't moving objects keep moving forever? In every life, in all sports, suppose if you are kicking a ball, after some time it stops. When we are going for a shot, whatever force I have applied for shot, but it is not going constantly. Why? Because of a force is acting against that motion, known as friction. Things do not keep moving forward because there is almost always an unbalanced force acting upon it. Why we are always calling unbalanced force? Unbalanced. What is balanced force? There should be equal force which can maintain the equilibrium. So if you want any object should be stationary, so both forces should be equal. But if you want it to move from original position, there should be some unbalanced force. Unbalanced means more than that inertia force. Other example, a book sliding across the table, slow down and stop because of the force of friction. When you slide something, after some time it will stop because some force, friction, sometimes air resistance is acting against that movement, and after some time the object is stopped. If you throw a ball upward, it will eventually slow down and fall because of force of gravity. You are throwing something up, it will go up, stay there and again come back, because gravity is, when it is going up, initially you when throw, speed will be faster. But as high as it go, the speed velocity will become slower, 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 ultimately zero velocity, and again it will come back in on outer space, away from gravity and any source of friction. A rocket ship launched with a certain speed and direction would keep going in that some direction and at that same speed forever. Space is vacuum. There is no air, no force, no gravity, and if you keep anything either stationary or momentary, it will maintain its position for infinite period of time until unless any unbalanced force you are trying to act upon that to stop or increase the velocity. Example from human body. Because we are from physical education, we need to use these things in our daily life. Athlete can assume an extreme tuck position by placing the head near the knees, holding the mass, arm and leg tightly together, thereby bringing more body mass closer to axis of rotation, thereby moment of inertia is reduced in order to successfully complete multiple somersaults. Inertia, what is inertia? Inertia is body mass, body resistance offered to any external force. And we all know that our body has a mass. What is mass? We imagine that in our body, whole mass is concentrated at one point, and we are saying that point is a center of gravity. When you talk about whole body center of gravity, it is located just anterior to your S2. But if we divide our different body parts, suppose if I am talking about thigh, center of gravity is located somewhere here. If I am talking about our knee joint, the center of gravity of knee or lower limb is located near here. So by this processes, different parts, if we divide bodies, different parts, so the center of gravity is located somewhere in the body. Whole body is nearest to thigh, upper thigh is located near here, knee here, elbow here. So by this mechanism, center of mass is located somewhere in the body. And we also know what is balance and what is unbalanced. If we are trying to keep our center of gravity closer to body, we will be balanced. And if our center of gravity will go away from our body, we will unbalance, because we will bend towards the center of gravity. So when a person is performing a skydiving or somersault, so he is trying to flex whole body, and by flexing his whole body, he is trying to bring his center of gravity closer to the whole body. And what is mass moment of inertia? Mass moment of inertia means the distance of body part from center of gravity. Okay? Distance of body part from center of gravity. If it is more, if distance of body part is more away or farther from center of gravity, you need more force to produce angular motion. Okay? Again, try to understand it. If your body part is farther from center of gravity, your muscle require more force to produce angular motion. If your body part is closer to your center of gravity, that is known as mass moment of inertia. Distance from center of gravity to body part is known as mass moment of inertia. So when mass moment of inertia is more, you need more force to perform the movement. If mass moment of inertia is lesser, you need less force to perform the movement. So when person is skiing or somersaulting, he is trying to flex his body part closer, so he can perform more number of repetition with less amount of muscle force. Okay, but if he is stretching his body, he cannot perform number of repetition because he need more force, and sometimes he is not able to generate that amount of torque. So when you need any function with less effort, to try to bring your body part nearer to your center of gravity. So all those sports which require less repetition with more performance should try to bring your body part closer. Like wrestling, when you going for wrestling, wrestler, they are always trying to flex and trying to collapse his body nearer to his center of gravity. And by keeping his body flex posture, they are getting their center of body part closer to center of gravity, so less force is required to produce any angular motion. So they can easily defeat their counterparts. Second, now come to second law. First law states when you want to good performance with lesser effort, you should keep your body part closer to mass center of gravity, that is known as mass moment of inertia. Second law says force equal mass time acceleration. F equal to ma. What is acceleration? A measurement of how quickly an object is changing speed. What is acceleration? Delta, change in speed. Change in velocity is known as acceleration. What does F equal to ma mean? Force is directly proportional to mass and acceleration. Imagine a ball of certain mass moving at a certain acceleration. This ball has a certain force. F, force will be equal to m into a. Suppose if you are trying to apply more force and I am throwing a heavy ball because of more m with same amount of acceleration, it will exert a great pressure over ball. Sometime if we want mass should be constant but we need same amount of force over the ball, we should increase a. So either by increasing a or by increasing m, we can increase f. Now imagine we make the ball twice as big but keep the acceleration constant. F into ma says that the new ball has twice the force of old ball. Either you double mass or double acceleration. Both will double your force. Now imagine the original ball moving at twice the original acceleration. F says that ball will again have twice the force of the ball at the original acceleration. If you double the mass, you double the force. If you double the acceleration, you double the force. What if you double the mass and acceleration? If you double both, mass is double, acceleration double, your force will be increases by 4 times. If you triple the mass and triple the acceleration, your force will be increases by 9 times. It is just multiplication of mass into acceleration, doubling the mass. So what if you decreases the mass and by half, how much force will be the object have now? If you decrease the mass by half, force will decrease by half. If you decreases both force and acceleration both half, force will decrease by 1/4. F equal to ma basically means that force of an object come from its mass and its acceleration. Force is dependent on both things. If you want a force, either you increase acceleration or you increase mass. Example, I can try to explain this thing by the example. Something very massive that changing speed very slowly, it means acceleration is low but mass is high. Like a glacier can still have a great force. Something very small that changing speed very quickly, like a bullet, can still have a great force. Something very small changing speed very slowly will have a weak force. Okay? So, like glacier is massive but acceleration is slow. Glacier is big, mass is bigger but acceleration is slow, so it is having more force. Same as bullet is very small, least mass, less mass, but velocity or acceleration is more, so it will have great force. Example from human body. The contracting biceps, forearm and hand muscle produces extension torque at elbow as the hand is accelerated to the mouth. The flexion torque is directly proportional to the angular acceleration of rotating elbow and inversely proportional to the mass of inertia of rotating body. Suppose if you are flexing the elbow, clear? If you are having less mass and acceleration is constant, mass is less and acceleration is constant, so you can generate less force. But if you are having more mass and acceleration is same, you can generate more force. This is the basic principle of exercising muscle. When you are adding mass, you are increasing the force of contraction. And when you increase the force of contraction, the basic building block, a muscle duplication, hypertrophy of muscle is very much possible. That's why all the bodybuilders are using very high amount of weight for strengthening of their muscle. So they are using the basic principle of second law of Newton's. By adding the mass or you increase the acceleration, you increase the force, clear? If you slap someone like this and slap someone like this, clear? The mass of your hand is same, but in both attempts, one time mass is same but acceleration is slow. Patient will feel or subject will feel less amount of injury. But when your acceleration is faster, he can get more damage. So because of changing in acceleration or because of changing in mass, or a child slap you with same velocity, same acceleration, you will not get injured because he has less mass. Clear? So either by changing mass or by changing acceleration, we can increase or decrease force. Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. What does this mean? For every force acting on an object, there is an equal force acting in the opposite direction. Right now, gravity is pulling you down in your seat, but Newton's third law says your seat is pushing up against you with equal force. This is why you are not moving. There is balance force acting on you, gravity pulling down, your seat pushing up. You may have fond of seeing cricket. Always, it is very easy to apply six or strong shot on fast bowler, because when a ball comes from high velocity, the same response can be, even you play it only, it can go for 4 because of action and reaction. But if you play it on the spinner ball will not go so far because of this principle. You are sitting on chair, you are stabilized. It means you are not only, you are thinking I am putting some pressure over chair and chair is stable, chair is a solid, that's why it is giving support. But not. When you are putting some pressure over chair, chair is applying same amount of pressure against you, that's why you are balanced. So Newton's third law is the main which can tell us how to get balance, how to disturb balance, how to increase balance. What happens if you are standing on a skateboard with a slippery floor and push against a wall? Suppose you are here and standing on slippery. If you push there, you will fall down because with the same amount, ground will push you back. If you are standing on a skateboard or slippery floor and push against the wall, you slide in opposite direction because you pushed on the wall, but the wall pushed back on the wheel with equal and opposite force. Why? Second example, why does it hurt so much when you stub your toes? When your toes exert force on a rock, the rock exert an equal force back on your toes. The harder you hit the great toe against it, the more force rock exert back on you. If you hit a ground with less amount of force, you will get less effort. But if you hit strongly, you will get more injury because same amount of force will be exerted on your body, and if the amount of stress is more, which is away from the limit of tolerance capability or cushioning capability of the tissue. You all know tissue is a structure which has capability of changing its strain. There is a strain, viscoelasticity. When you apply any pressure there, it can there is an elastic property. It can elongate and distribute the load. But if you apply any load which exceeds the extensibility or elastic limit of that tissue, it will damage. And damage is a failure mechanism. By damaging, it can release the energy. It can transmit the energy. We all know energy is neither created nor destroyed. It can be converted from one form to other form. If you apply any energy in one form, it will be resulted in other form. Example from human body. A person who falls on the roof of a second-story building exerts force on the ground, and the ground exerts an equal and opposite force on the person, because the discrepancy in mass between the ground and floor. Mass has a very high amount of inertia. Mass has a very high amount of inertia, and when you are falling down, okay, mass will not have any effect. Earth will not have any effect, because I have told you before in first law, there is something unbalanced. If fly is hitting on car, there is no effect on car, but fly can get damaged. But if something massive is hitting on fly will be died because is of unbalanced force. Same here, body mass moment of inertia is very less in comparison to earth inertia. So when you fell down on earth will not have any effect, but your body can damage. Same as if any heavy object, any strong object with high velocity fell down on earth, it can create a plane crash. After crash, you can find out some damage in the earth, because the mass moment of inertia as acceleration was much more high. Now we will review the thing. Newton first law says object in motion tend to stay in motion and object at rest tend to stay at rest unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. Second law, force equal to mass, time, acceleration. And third law says Newton's, for every action there is equal and opposite action. Now we will discuss how we can use all these three principles in our physical training. All these laws are talking about forces, inertia, balance forces, acceleration and mass. And we all going through different movement, inertia, velocity during training session. Clear? Sometime person may get injured, sometime he is walking and playing. How can, suppose a person get injured, how can we treat him, or how can we feel how much force is applied over joint? We can assess the integrity of joint, what is the weight bearing capacity of that joint, and when person is doing any activity, loading capacity of that joint can increases. Clear? For example, normal knee joint, if we have ideal body weight, knee joint is going subjected to equal amount of load. If we are walking with normal height and weight, knee is subjected to equal amount of load for which it is meant. But if we increases our body weight by 1 degree more than 1 kg more than normal, suppose if I'm up 6 feet height, my weight should be 72. But if my weight is 73, it means I have increases 1 kg weight. And when you increases 1 kg weight, it can increases weight on knee by 2 times. Practical application of all 3 laws in training as well as treatment. Okay. So by using these 3 laws, we can calculate the specific force which is exerting on different joints. How we can calculate it? We can draw a free body diagram. Free body diagram we will discuss in next class. How we can draw free body diagram, and by using all 3 principles, we can calculate how much force is subjected over a particular joint. And we all know what is stability. Stability of joint is mainly because of balance, equal force from external side as well as internal side. As well as, suppose when you are walking, ground is exerting equal amount of force on you, and your muscle and joint is exerting that force. Clear? And because of these 2 forces, you are balanced. It means Newton's 3rd law is continuously acting when you are walking. When you are walking, there is change in acceleration. Sometimes you are increasing velocity, sometimes you are decreasing velocity. A person who is lean and thin can run faster, who has with more muscle can run faster, a person who is obese cannot run faster because of Newton's 2nd law. So by using all these laws, we can design proper training protocol, we can design proper treatment protocol, how we can decrease the stress of joint, how can we increase the stress of joint, how can we increase the muscle strength and torque. So we can calculate the amount of stresses on joint by using these 3 principles. We will discuss in this class. Now come to some definitions. In Newton's 3rd law, inertia, we already discussed the tendency of object to change in state of motion, acceleration, a change in velocity, a measurement of how quickly an object is changing speed, direction or both. Velocity means the rate of change of position along a straight line with respect to time. Force, strength or energy differences. Okay. So Newton's 3rd law is very much applicable in whole training protocol. We can calculate each and every force over each and every joint by using F equal to ma, by using Newton's 3rd law, action-reaction forces as well as law of inertia of different joints. But I think it was very brief. Being a physical trainer, we should have a complete and full-fledged knowledge about the synovial joint, because it is the only joint which can provide us a lot of mobility, and by mobility we can perform better in number of sports. Okay, so we should have a complete idea about the synovial. So I would like to give some more emphasis on the synovial joint. Okay, let us discuss synovial joint. Include most of the body joints, most all joint, your elbow joint, your wrist joint, your knee joint, hip joint, ankle joint, all are the example of synovial joint. And if you see all the mobility, all the movement is because of mobility of the elbow joint, mobility of the shoulder joint, mobility of the knee, mobility of the hip as well as ankle. When we walk, when we do anything either from hand or lower limb, it is because of mobility available at the synovial joint. All directions freely movable. Most of the synovial joint has either 1 degree of freedom or 2 degree of freedom or 3 degree of freedom. Degree of freedom mean the number of movement available in different axis and plane. So we have 3 axis and 3 plane. Most of the sign like shoulder and your hip joint has range of motion in all 3 directions, whereas your knee has motion in 2 degree of freedom. We are saying it is type of hinge joint, but knee joint has some amount of rotation also. You can see this is flexion and extension. Okay, but when you move your hip like this, it is rotation at hip joint. It is the rotation at hip joint. But when you are rotating the knee in flex knee, okay, when you are rotating the lower limb in extension, it will cause rotation over hip joint. But when you rotate your lower leg in flexion posture of knee, it will have some amount of medial and lateral rotation at knee joint. So synovial joint are a joint which has maximum amount of freedom in movement, and most of the body joints are made of synovial joint. There is one very important thing is shoulder synovial joint. It has contain joint space. First thing, and second thing, that space is filled with the synovial fluid. One important thing I would like to tell you, joint, synovial joint, it forms by 2 bones, and both bones are covered with a thick layer of articular cartilage. Joints, bones are the vascularized structure, whereas cartilage are the least vascularized structure. Clear? And what is the function of cartilage? They are acting as a shock absorber. They are acting as a shock absorber. When they are having less blood supply, if you produce any injury in cartilage, there is less chance of healing in cartilage. That's why we should always tell the sport person, avoid excessive loading, avoid friction, so we can save them from development of arthritis. It is the most common condition nowadays. It is most common in all old athletes, all old age person, arthritis. We all are aware about the disease. Arthritis is not a disease. It is just wear and tear. Suppose a bone is harder tissue which is fully covered by a softer white bone. And white is white because it has less amount of blood supply. And healing capability of any tissue is dependent on the amount of vascularity. If the area is more vascular, it will be healed earlier. If the area is less vascular, it will heal delayed. If no vascular, no healing. So most of the cartilage tissues have very limited capability of healing. So what should we do? We should try to prevent it from damage. Okay? If it will damage, it will not form or least form. So we should do all measure. We should avoid degeneration, tear or injury in cartilage. How we can prevent the injury? We can see here, show the bone diagram. Next. You can see the synovial joint. 2 bones, there is a space, that gray area. It is synovial fluid. Synovial fluid is there in between the 2 joints, which act as a buoyancy effect. If you apply any type of pressure over water, it can bounce you. Same as because of presence of that synovial fluid, if synovial fluid is there, there will be no friction in the bone, and when there is no friction, no wear and tear. If you want to tear anything, you should rub it and the particle will remove from there. But there is no rubbing, no damage, so we can save our articular cartilage. So we should take all measures to prevent leakage of our synovial fluid. What happens if your joint is stabilized properly and this is controlled by your muscle, anteriorly muscle, posterior muscle. If both muscle has equal power, equal flexibility, so the proper articular congruency of the joint is maintained. Clear? But because of your wrong posture, because of wear and tear, if your one muscle get tight, your one muscle get tight, so the tight muscle will drag the bone towards its side. It can affect the integrity of joint. Earlier the joint weight bearing is like this, full loading, full surface loading, but because of tightness of one muscle, tear of one muscle, there is a edge to edge loading. And when you apply edge to edge loading, excessive amount of stress is absorbed in one area. Excessive amount of stress absorbed. Suppose, for example, if you apply same amount of stress here, it can hurt your finger. But if you apply same amount of stress here, it will not have any effect over elbow joint because of more area. If you apply same amount of pressure in less area, it will damage the area. But if you apply same amount of pressure in larger area, it cannot have any effect because the weight or stress is distributed in larger areas. Articular cartilage are three types: hyaline cartilage, spongy, cushion absorbed compression, protects end of bone from being crushed. Because when you are loading two harder structure, and because of approximation of two harder structure, it can break. Clear? But because of presence of articular cartilage, when two ends are meeting itself, because of softening, it will not break. Second thing, I have told you articular cartilage doesn't have blood supply, or it has very least amount of blood supply. So we should try to prevent it from damage. Then we all know blood is the main source of nutrition. Okay? And articular cartilage is a living tissue. Blood is the main source of nutrition, and articular cartilage is a living tissue. So how it can be alive throughout the life? Clear? For to be alive, we need some nutrition. Blood supply is not there or very limited there, but cartilage are alive. How your cartilage is nourished? By proper compression and distraction. Clear? So when the joint compress, all the material, all the nutrition, all the waste products available in the cartilage comes out, and when the joint distract, it is again filled with the nutrition. So synovial fluid is the medium which can supply nutrition to the cartilage and absorb the waste or metabolites of the cartilage. Are you getting? When the joint compress, all the nutrient, all the waste products available in the cartilage comes out like a sponge. When you apply compression over a sponge, all the fluid, all the water present in the sponge will come out. When you release the sponge, it can again fill with the water. Same as when you apply loading over joint, the material from articular cartilage comes out. And when you apply unloading, when we are walking, one phase, one joint is loading, unloading, loading, unloading. So this is the mechanism by which your articular cartilage gets its nutrition. Joint synovial cavity. Synovial cavity is the source of nutrition. Synovial fluid is supplied by a vascular structure. From blood, nutrition comes to synovial fluid, and from synovial fluid, nutrition goes to your articular cartilage. So articular cartilage is the very most important characteristic feature of synovial joint. Potential space, a small amount of synovial fluid.